We're getting towards spring in the Northern Hemisphere, and much like people in the UK on Friday night primetime, we are flocking up the A11 to Norfolk and to Snetterton for the butt-kicker Toyota GR Cup and what promises to be 15 minutes of high-quality, exciting and thrilling action around this nifty little circuit. My name is Darren Thacker, joined alongside by Joe Peake in the commentary box. No Arjuna Kankiparty here this week, but delighted to have Joe alongside me this evening. And Joe, Snetterton, it's an interesting track, isn't it? It's one of those where there aren't really too many clear overtaking opportunities, but you can go side by side pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, it's very tough, especially in this modern version of it where it's got the new twistier infield section. But as you can see, we've had some very technical tracks. Road Atlanta, a bit faster and shorter than this one, but you look at things like Long Beach. We're going to have Sandown up next, which is definitely a difficult one. And, of course, wrapping it up with Mount Panorama at the end of the season. Going to end it out with a bang, I suppose.
Yeah, all the way through this season, we've had those nifty little narrow tracks, Lebanon, Brands Hatch, Winton at the start of the season. Then we went more open. You're looking at Interlagos, as you mentioned, Daytona as well. And now we're back to a couple of tracks where maybe a little more difficult to overtake. And it's nice to see these guys having an extra challenge added to them. We're into qualifying for this opening race. Of course, stick around after this one because we are going to be having Super Formula Light action from Suzuka, which promises to be as fantastic as every single week has been so far. A little bit wide there as we see our first couple of cars come out for their qualifying laps. But realistically, when you've only got one or two attempts at this to get a time on the board, you've really got to make it count when it matters.
Exactly, and like you said, it's difficult to pass here, so it's going to be important to have that track position. Honestly, the only two real long straights that you have, the Bentley Straight and the Senna Straight, both lead into very awkward brake zones. The fast double apexer of Riches, and then the kind of run through Brundle into Nelson, where you're curving and braking as you go. So, other spot I think honestly that might offer up chances is into Wilson, the hairpin there that used to be called Montreal, and then maybe into Augustini. But you're going to have to be aggressive.
Really are. It's not a track where you can sit back and wait. You've really got to try and force the issue on the moves and try and make it work for you. I mean, I was saying to Joe just before we got onto the broadcast that this is my local track, so I've seen much racing around here, I should say, in all forms. Truck racing, little F4 cars, bigger Ferrari GT cars, and every single time there's always some kind of incident. There's some kind of attempted move that doesn't come off exactly right, and I'm sure we're going to see an example of that here this evening, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's down towards Agostini, because it is a tight hairpin with a little bit of a straight leading up to it, giving you a little bit of hope that you can make that move, but it's not always on when these drivers go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's anything like the real Toyota GR Cup, then they're going to be aggressive drivers, no doubt, as the real thing often sees some chaotic and just furious races out there. It seems that someone's got at least a bit of a sense of humor on their Toyota with some road representation, and Toto Wolff looking nonplussed.
Yes, this is at least the second time I've seen this livery. I can't remember whether it's the same person, but this livery definitely doing the rounds. And nice to see some artistic flair, I think it's fair to say, from some of our drivers when it comes to making some of these liveries. But Lenderoso needing to get a lap time on the board, can't really hang around too much longer as he makes his way through this long right-hander. And I mean, we're looking at the times at the moment. If you look at the timing tower, there are some gaps forming realistically. Half a second between Guy and Geraghty and Corrales at the front of the field. And further back, you look at a little bit wider gaps than we maybe expect. So, this could be a procession, but we've seen it all the way through the season here on Friday Night Primetime. It's likely to be anything but.
That's Deschamps there, who just crossed the line on his second lap. Thankfully, that one counted for him, but it's still only good enough for 14th. Otherwise, first lap got discounted due to an off-track or something of that sort somewhere. Eric Kay hard get after just one lap with a 2:05.6. That's actually good enough for row 2, so that'll work out well for him.
Will. I mean, it's important to get a good starting position, but of course, we've seen all the way through the season drivers make their way through the field. I'm looking at Diego Santos Rodriguez as maybe someone who might try and push himself up the order early on in the race, but we won't have too long to find out how that will happen as Freitas through the final corner at Murray's, bouncing his way over that sausage curb. I think he may just about get to the line in time to set his time, but it won't be anywhere near pole, I don't believe. 2.66 keeps him in P9 for Wilden Freitas, and I believe that will be that for qualifying. Which means we will be able to run you through the starting order very shortly indeed, as you get a lovely view up towards turn 1 there, and is the going down in towards the bomb hole as one of the main bridges into the track. But here is your grid. Cian Geraghty on pole position, 2:04.8 the benchmark. Ruben Corrales in P2. Eric Kay and Ivan Landeroso on the second row, with Thomas Filipczak and Sam Drought on row 3, with Sam Drought over a second back already. Looking further back, Jason Bagley and Luke Ridder in the top 8, with Wilden Freitas and Andres Rojas Moreno rounding out our top 10. Magnus Darblom, not the first time he's been here on Friday Night Primetime in the Buckingham GR Cup. He's in 11th with Christian in P12. We look further back, Diego Santos Rodriguez, maybe hoping for more in the race. He'll start from 13th with Robert Sau joining him on row 7. Felipe Segato Perez and Robin Deschamps on row 8, with Seth French and Aaron Alvarez rounding out the top 18. We only have a couple more drivers. Yeah, here we go. Marcelo Alejandro Rodriguez and Gary Pearce. 20 drivers. A big grid, really, that we've seen in the Buckingham GR Cup so far this season. And I think we might see quite a bit of action in the opening couple of laps here, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I'd say, like I said, on that first lap into Wilson, where drivers are going to be trying to see if they can slide up the inside. Expect it to see a lot of 2, maybe even 3 wide through that corner, but not necessarily the same number of cars coming out the other side.
Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to argue with that, because it is one of the tracks where incidents do happen. The track does narrow up. There is room for an overtake, but there isn't always enough room to really go for it. Thankfully, I don't believe we're going to be having a full safety car or outlap or formation lap, whatever you want to call it. We've only got a couple of corners to go. We've had it before where spent 4 minutes waiting for us to go green, but thankfully I don't believe we're going to have any of those worries here this evening, as the pace car will get us underway, drivers following in tow. But the opening corners, we've said they're going to be important, but I mean, is it a case, do you think, if whoever can get through the first lap's going to win this race, or do you think this could carry on all the way through?
I think it could carry on, because these cars are definitely slipstream cars. They're momentum cars. So if you can hold on to someone who's close in pace to you, we could see quite a battle up at the front.
Absolutely could, and hopefully we will. Hopefully we'll see some great racing action for all 15 minutes that we will have on the clock here this evening. Cian Geraghty on pole position. Can he get away from the rest? Everyone bunching up behind, of course, rolling start. They will get themselves underway relatively shortly when the green flag does wave, and Cian Geraghty looks to get the best possible launch towards turn 1, as we are now racing here at Snetterton. Good start from our pole sitter, but they are going to be going side by side just in behind. Corrales and Eric Kay are going to be making their way through this first turn, wheel to wheel. But the best start that he could wish for Cian Geraghty as he makes his way through the opening corner. Further in behind there, 2, maybe 3 wide, coming in towards Montreal at the hairpin, but I think the front guys all getting themselves through this opening few corners.
We did have a bit of an accident farther back. Sal, Dahlblom, and Perez all wound up facing the wrong way from that one, and I think I see Moreno also turned around out of Wilson. But now we head down towards Augustini, and again, this is a potential place to try and get aggressive. You can see a few of them poking their nose out. That is Filipczak on the inside of Bagley. It looks like he's going to make that stick.
Yes, and it's a very good move there from Bagley to Bedintev up into P6. The number 16 car maybe punching a little bit above his I rating, but doing a very nice job in qualifying. And to start this race, bit of a send here. I think that's from Filipczak. Oh, sorry, that's Corrales to the inside as they make their way through this double right-hander, really, as they make their way on towards the Bentley straight. And Corrales really trying to force the issue here, side by side in behind there with Filipczak and Jason Bagley, as they're not going to give it up between each other, and neither is Eric Kay. Cian Geraghty, he's been caught very early on in this race, and they're going to be going side by side down into the tricky left-hander at Brundle, who will emerge from under the bridge in first. Eric Kay leads, but Geraghty with the inside line, he will sweep himself back into the lead, and defending through the bomb hole. It's a good start from him, and Eric Kay, all of a sudden, he looks vulnerable for P2.
Yeah, and he's trying to cover that off because you honestly don't want to go too wide through there in these cars. It's going to be doable, but you're either going to lose a lot of time or someone's going to get shoved off into the grass.
And there is a lot of grass on the outside there, isn't there, at core? And there is also a road that you can go around to the commentary booth around there. Gravel track. I've seen Lewis McGlade absolutely bomb it around there in his Ford Escort, but thankfully no such antics here this evening, with one lap now completed in this 15-minute race. King Garrity, he is really broken away. That 1 second gap now really has been bridged, and it's down to the rest to fight over P3 as Corrales and Lenderosa go side by side.
Yeah, you can see them bouncing over those curves, and Lenderosa is going to have the inside here. What he really needs is a good exit coming off of there, because if he can hold on around the outside, Corrales could have had a shot into Palmer. No such luck at this stage, so he'll have to slot in back behind. And I think Rodriguez, looks like Rodriguez had a bit of an off in Wilson, so let's see how this came about. Certainly looking like he might have. Ooh. Oh, just send it deep, and Carr did not realize that he was to the inside, or just decided to ignore that he was there, because he really hooked him there.
Yeah, I really thought the purple car in behind was going to be the one to cause the collision, but in the end, no. I think these are the couple of incidents from the opening corner. Onto two wheels goes Felipe Segato Perez, as he didn't have the best of starts early on in his. Nicolas Rojas Moreno just spinning on his own, dropping the rear end, and I think to right himself once again in a very nice green coloured car, fitting into the landscape. I think it's fair to say here in rural Norfolk, but that is, it's not the most ideal start, is it, when you go up onto two wheels, just getting a tap in the rear?
No, you don't want to bicycle these things, which you honestly can relatively easily do on some of these big sausage curbs, because you had brought them up a little bit earlier, and one of the drivers really clattering over them. You can get away with it, but it's not fast at all. You're going to lose a ton of time. You have to try and just glance them maybe ever so slightly. Do not pound your way over them.
That's really one of the keys of this circuit. You want to make sure that you're sticking within those track limits, not really pushing the corners too hard, because it is unforgiving, really. Not much runoff, if any, at any of these corners, and when you've got the sausage curbs on the inside, they can really bounce you over and wide, so losing you time as well. So it is a very tricky track to really nail. I think a few of these drivers are finding it so far, but we're seeing some nice battles up near the front, aren't we? This top group of 5, only about a second and a half splitting them, and here's Philip Jack down the inside looking for it. That's a late move. The door was being closed, and Corrales was having absolutely none of that.
Philip Jack was... I've never seen an off course to the inside quite like that in that corner. You're right, he squeezed them all the way. Usually it's on corner exit that you see drivers complaining about that situation, and I'm kind of impressed that they got away with that, as now it looks like Bagley's going to try this again, and instead we're going to be checking in on Kristen a little bit behind. That is Freitas just in front. Oh, back to our battle between Bagley and Philip Jack, and again, Bagley cannot seem to make anything stick.
Lenderosa can, up into P2 and Eric Kay. Good move from him down towards the inside of Hamilton, as they will make their way through Palmer and then, Oggies and then at Williams to get themselves onto the Bentley straight. But Eric Kay looking like he's vulnerable at the moment. Once you're offline here at Snetterton, difficult to get back online, but it looks like he may just about be able to defend from Ruben Corrales. This being fixed setup series, you're not going to see too much differential in terms of straight line speed, apart from in the slipstream, because there isn't really any advantage you can gain from it.
You could see Philip Jack really wanted to get involved, but I think that was wise that he decided not to. Good over-under there for Corrales, and I think he's going to be able to get that apex away into the bomb hole. They're going to go side by side. He leaves him enough space. Aggressive stuff between these two.
Yeah, these guys really showing how to race side by side, locked together, but no real contact to speak of, and great to see these guys going at it in a lovely, clean manner. But it's now going to put Eric a little bit under pressure from Philip Jack as they make their way out of the final corner. Jason Bagley and Sam Drought, I'm sure, will be lapping these opportunities up if they can make the move stick as well. But for now, Philip Jack is the only one to make the move. Eric Kay will have the inside line down at turn 1, but we've seen these two go side by side, push one out wide, get one offline, and Jason Bagley might be having a look down towards the hairpin.
Oh, Thomas completely 4 wheels off. He's able to bring it back on without too much drama, and now he's got to go defensive. as Bagley, maybe was too ambitious. He's going to get into the side of him. I thought maybe that was going to be a wreck, and in fact, Bagley's going to lose out to Trout because of that.
Yeah, Jout saying, don't mind if I do, thank you very much, and making his way up in towards P6, not having a bad race so far himself. But, I mean, a lot of these guys, with all this fighting, it's allowed Geraghty and Lenderoso completely away from the pack. 1.5 seconds now is that gap, and, I mean, they are starting to really pull this gap away from the rest, and with half of the race already gone, you'd struggle to, you know, form a coherent argument as to whether Kian Geraghty is going to really lose a P2 at least here.
Yeah, it's definitely heating up here in this part of the pack as we watch Corrales still under threat from Eric K for that podium position. I don't think Eric's close enough coming down the Bentley straight this time. But we've already seen drivers try it side by side down into Brundle, which just it doesn't really work out for that outside car. You're too shallow to try anything unless you're just aiming for a wreck there into Nelson. And yeah, he's going to stay in line this time.
Yeah, they do continue. There's no side-by-side action this time around. I mean, when you come into the track here at Snetterton, you come in from the north, and the first corner that you can see is, well, really both Nelson and the Bommel. So once you go up the little rise and go to the viewing areas, you can see side-by-side action pretty much immediately from coming into the circuit, only about 100 metres from the ticket booth. So it's always a place where you're welcomed by side-by-side action, but none such action this time around. Then make their way down towards turn 1, broadcast centre on the left, and another commentary booth on the right. So as they make their way towards turn 1, we again seeing no real move made by Lenderoso, but he's gaining, isn't he, on Kian Geraghty?
But Eric made a move. Yeah, here you see the number 2 now, and he's in front of Corrales after Ruben had a bit of a bad run out of Murray. So that went a bit unfortunate for him, just not getting the momentum. If anything, I'd almost say it's more important to try and make your passes out of corners than into corners because of those long straights. Keep the momentum going.
You don't really want to be letting up any kind of speed that you're carrying through some of these corners, because it will not help you as you make your way through the following corners, particularly a track like this where there is quite a lot of flow to the track. Each corner leads on to the next. There isn't too much stagnation in terms of how you're meant to drive this track. So lots of opportunity if you can keep it online, and if you push someone out, well, we've already seen it in this race, they're going to fall down the order because everyone else sticking in line and going to be enjoying those faster racing lines through all of these corners. Sam Trout we're on board now. He really is looking to pick up the pieces here, isn't he? And I mean, I wouldn't rule out a podium position for him here, because he's been quietly going about his business with some good pace and not really causing any incident.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you got to do, is just try and put yourself in the right place at the right time and capitalize on opportunities when they come at you. In fact, what's he going to do here? Is he going to try and push the issue? And no, he's not. So yeah, like I was just saying, just be smart about your racing in these cars, because we've seen that now where there's been a couple of times, I think Philip Jack in one of those positions, where if you see cars battling in front, try to put yourself in a spot where you can get the run off the corner, and while they're taking a compromised line, you can fly on past both of them.
Yeah, and I think that's really why this track particularly works well with the cars. Ooh, as up front, there's Lenderoso, Kian Geraghty. Oh no. Well, there's the argument for you that he won't finish in the top 2. He's not in the race anymore, so disaster for the pole sitter, but Lenderoso, Christmas has come, what, 7 months early for him?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to see him back. He's been gone a long time from our timing screens, so it's looking more and more likely we're going to get that drop due to packet loss message on our little chat here in iRacing itself. I'll keep an eye out for that, which means that Lenderoso, I mean, I always say that drivers should never give up in a race. You always have to keep pushing to the end, and this is exactly why. If Ivan had been resting on his laurels, he would have had maybe Eric a little bit closer. Now he's in the lead with a handy 2.5 seconds.
With those 2.5 seconds, you're always looking at that to grow, especially as this train of 4 may start to fight a little bit harder in the next couple of laps. Of course, only 3.5 minutes plus the rest of that lap to go. So I think we're looking at we might even squeeze in another 2 laps at the end of this one. It's going to be tight, but there is still time to make these moves. There is still opportunity for these guys to put themselves up a little bit higher in the order. And in this train for P2, I'm looking at Philip Jack and Sam Jout to really force the issue in the next lap or so.
And also, we got confirmation that Garrity was dropped due to connection. So, unfortunate that he's not going to get to finish this race, or he's going to wind up multiple laps down on this one. Battle for P2 now that everybody's been promoted. Eric, with that decisive pass over Ruben, is sitting well, but leading a bit of a train of cars on this one. And you talked about the flow of this circuit. You know, from above, you look down, and it looks really fiddly. You know, it looks very technical, and it is. But the first time that I came out and drove on this circuit, I was pleasantly surprised. And I wish it got a little bit more attendance from more drivers here on iRacing, because I actually like how this track drives. It's fun.
And it just produces some great racing in lots of
Yes.
different categories, just because of how it works. Even though there aren't too many heavy braking zones at the end of straights. Of course, you look down here when we'll come down into the hairpin. There's a heavy braking zone here. But it's a difficult overtaking opportunity. It's not an easy one. You have to work for it, and it provides some great racing action, because if you're side-by-side through here, we might see it between Eric Kay and Ruben Corrales. You're going to end up being side-by-side through Palmer, and then in towards Agostini, where there's another hairpin. So it really lends itself to some great racing and some good rhythm, as we've mentioned, onto the track. And you're right, it's a shame that we don't get more racing here at Snetterton, but here does come Corrales, outside line, down into Agostini. All the spectators on the bank, just on the exit of the corner. Not going to be seeing a move from Corrales on the entry, but a good exit might see him to the inside.
He was thinking about it. This all started when Eric went a little bit wide out of Rich's, dipped a tire or two off into the grass. So that slowed him enough that Corrales thought maybe there was something there, and you could see a few tries, but once again, Eric rebuffing him. Now, if he can get the run onto Bentley, maybe he'll try it down into Brundle. I don't think that's enough. You need a bit more speed.
Yeah, and you really need to claim the inside line, don't you? Because that can be so crucial down this Bentley straight. Longest straight, I believe, in UK motorsport, if I am not mistaken.
Really?
So, you know, ample time to gain. I do believe that is the case. Maybe if not just outside of Silverstone. But it's a good opportunity to gain, really, isn't it? And then make the move in the corner.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you need to focus on that corner exit coming out of Williams, which is actually a surprisingly fast turn. It's because you're coming out of Augie's and you're not really fully up to speed. I found that I could get away with easily just a bit of a lift and then get back on the throttle as soon as possible. But that does make it hard to try and get one over on your opponent, because you need to be that just tiniest bit braver and earlier getting on the gas.
Yes, and as we go on to the final lap, I did double check that is the longest straight, the Bentley straight in UK motorsport. It's longer than anything we see at Silverstone, yeah. So not by much. It might help maybe with that extra little bit you can see there, the cut through for the 100 layout, but regardless, that is the longest straight. But they won't really care, these guys, fighting away on this final lap. Lenderoso still leads. That gap has come down, but comfortable enough as we make our way into Agostini for the final time. Really, it's Corrales who is looking to make the move, but he's really going to have to send it somewhere, because opportunities are running thin now.
Yeah, and with it being so late in the race, you've kind of made your bed as we go side by side down into Agostini as well, a little bit farther down the order, and looks like someone going to be a little offline there trying to get the car back going. That is Rodriguez chasing on Freitas with Bagley, who, man, I mean, kind of how the mighty have fallen. He was so much farther up earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, he just didn't have the pace. I mean, he stayed in sixth for quite a while, but he just hasn't had that pace to stay with the others, realistically, has he? But he's defended well to stay in P6 when you think that he's 8 seconds off the back of this train that we're looking at. Lenderoso, great drive from him. I think Eric Kay, 2 more laps and he might have got him.
Well, Lenderoso, like I said, he managed it well. He knew that there was no point in letting Eric stay close to him. Might as well build the gap, and that's what he did as he comes through Coram. As long as he gets Murray's right, he's home free.
He is, and that gap, it has been coming down. You'd think that Lando Rosso maybe just been cruising, and very, very wide. Philip Chak doing everything he can, and he might get a run, for P3. Lando Rosso will come across the line to win this race. With a run up towards the line, Eric K second. Who's going to take third? I think just about Ruben Corrales. By the slimmest of margins. They were side by side, and yeah, there you go, 600ths of a second between Philip Chak and Corrales for P3. Sam Trout saw it in front of him in P5. A great race from Jason Bagley to take home P6, but I mean, there was some great train racing there, and we really thought that there could be some more moves, but in the end, great defending from Eric K.
Yeah, if I was if I was Ruben and I lost that spot from that run from Thomas, I'd feel a little hard done by, because Thomas definitely abused the track limit slightly as we take a look at the results.
Here we go, even Lando Rosso wins the race, not by the margin we maybe thought he would with 5 minutes to go, but it's a 1-2-3 for the numbers, 1-2-3. Eric K in second and Ruben Corrales in P3. He just about edged out Thomas Philip Chak up towards the line with only 600 splitting those two. Sam Trout finishes P5 with Jason Bagley fending off Freitas and Alejandro Rodriguez, who themselves only finished 800ths apart in 7th and 8th. Christian Christin finished in P9 with Luke Ridder rounding out that top 10, 17 seconds back. We look further down with Robin Deschamps in 11th, Andres Rojas Moreno in 12th, I should say, and Gary Pearce in 13th. Seth French and Diego Santos Rodriguez round out the top 15 with Robert Sau, Magnus Dahlblom, Felipe Segato Perez, and then Kian Geraghty, the other drivers listed on our timing screens. One driver, of course, then, who did qualify, but didn't quite make themselves in towards the race. But, I mean, I think that 15-minute race really sets us up well for the 20 minutes of Super Formula Lights that we've got coming up, Joe.
Yeah, and those Super Formula Lights are something. They're pretty powerful little cars. They're very agile. So the racing is like usually what we see in real life on these things, which is everybody is just elbows out.
They very much are, and I can't really think of too many tracks where the culture and the landscape changes as much from Snetterton as it will to Suzuka. If we're being honest, it's quite a jump. They both start with S, but that's pretty much all the similarities there are between them. So it's going to be interesting to see these Super Formula Lights cars go around Suzuka, of course. It's a track that we're going to see them go around in real life. They're made for a track like Suzuka. And after the weeks that we've seen on Friday Night Primetime, these cars have been exceptional at Barcelona, at Monza, at every track we've been to, the Hungaroring that we've seen. And then, of course, when we had VCO Infinity just a couple of weeks ago, a few 45-minute long races, and we had some great quality action. So I can't see how it's going to be any different here.
No, and I mean, the other nice thing is that we're at the Japanese track, Suzuka. It doesn't get much more iconic than that. A bit big for cars such as these, but I think that will just make it all the more fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how many incidents are we going to see at A, the Casio Triangle, and B, at Turn 1? Because I think it's going to be a few, especially having watched quite a few of these short, sharp races in the Super Formula Lights. It could be quite exciting. Myself, Dareth, I can still joined by Joe Peak, who I saw in the chat, has got his fans out in force in the YouTube chat. But looking forward to this one. 20 minutes of high-quality racing. There is the calendar. And as we said, we've been to some fantastic tracks. Motegi, Monza, Hungaroring, Catalonia, Algarve. Great run of circuits. And we've still got Kota and Watkins Glen to go. I mean, we really have been treated this season. But Suzuka, you'd say, really is the Super Formula Lights track on this calendar.
Yeah, and you talked about watching out for craziness into places such as Casio Triangle. Watch out for 130R on the first lap or two. The cars are sketchy through there. You need temperature in the tires to really be able to take it flat out early on. Otherwise, everyone's going to probably have to do a confidence lift.
Oh, yes, but will some people not do a confidence lift and find out the hard way? We will find out for sure. Opening
we'll
lap
find out
the
very
S's.
easily.
Opening lap through the S's, though. I mean, side-by-side action up through there you don't often see in, bigger, wider vehicles. But in these lights, they're small, they're nippy, They can really fight themselves side-by-side up through the first sector. And I think it's going to be quite exciting to see who can really make the moves around the outside, through the inside, all the way up towards Dunlop.
Yeah, and especially on the first lap, trying to get everything sorted out through there, that's going to be important to place yourself well, give a little bit of space for your rivals, because if you're still side by side, even coming out of there, you come up to the Degners too, and those definitely are not side by side. In fact, the first Degner is wickedly fast in these cars. It's the tiniest of lifts through there, so you'll need some cooperation with your rivals.
Absolutely will. Difficult circuit, this. Difficult to get right, and I think we're going to see quite a bit of action in these 20 minutes, and I'm very, very much looking forward to it. Everyone just about getting themselves ready for this qualifying session. Not a long qualifying session, so not too long for times to be made. I'm just looking at my timing tower and the drivers that are in this session. The one name that jumps out to me, Ugo Chukwu, of course, fresh off of his Formula E rookie test last week, I believe. He is joining us here this evening. I think a few of these guys particularly, a few of the regulars that we normally have here in the Super Formula Lights may be focusing on the Nürburgring 24 Hours, of course, that's coming up tomorrow, running into Sunday, and who can blame them? It's going to be an interesting race, but for the guys that are here, I'm looking at that, and I can see a little bit of spray coming off the back of the car. Yes, there is. Oh, I am even more excited, Joe.
Track is very lightly wet is what I see right now. However, it's a 0% chance of precipitation. So we're beyond the wet weather. It's just going to be a case of, okay, how do you switch over? When do you switch over to those dry tires if we get going and find you can't start on the dries?
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. We have, myself and Arjuna Gargapati, who have taken you through most of this Friday Night Primetime season, have been loving seeing the rain, particularly for these Super Formula Lights. It creates chaos. That's the bare minimum of the word. There are far stronger words that I could be using, but I can't quite find them in my vocabulary right now. But a little bit of precipitation on the track is never a bad thing when it comes to these cars, and it can produce some fantastic racing. We saw it at Spain. We saw it at Portugal in VCO Infinity, and hopefully we can still see some spray kicking up in the race.
Yeah, I think with the temperatures that we've got, it's not super hot out there, but it is sunny, so it's going to pound down on the track. It's going to dry it up pretty quickly. I think even if we do start on wet tires here, the drivers are going to find themselves having to make that switch over relatively quickly, as Mamasi here coming through the Casio Triangle himself. Let's see what kind of time he's going to be getting on the board. I think drivers just putting their first ones in. And as he crosses the line, it's a 2 flat 6. That's actually good enough for provisional pole. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of gap between some of these times. 1.3 seconds, demonstrating that beautifully. And Massey, great time there to put himself 2-minute 0.6. Could we maybe see someone creep underneath the 2-minute mark? It would have to come from drivers that have almost finished their lap, if not already finished their lap, because that time is ticking down quickly. Javier Perez, we've seen a lot of over the course of this season on Friday Night Primetime in these Super Formula Lights. We'll see what he can do on his opening lap, but it's going to take quite a lot to beat that time from Massey.
I see a number of drivers that had their first lap deleted, which is easy to do here at Suzuka with it being a modern Formula One track. There's many paved runoff areas where you can just push it that little bit far outside. And with the wet track too, you're kind of exploring the grip here. You only get a bit of a warm-up and then your out lap and qualifying. And after that, you have to be on it. Perez in the number 2 is going to set a 2 flat 7, which is good enough for the front row and much closer than everybody else has been able to get to Mamasi.
And we're seeing quite a lot of times come across the line. Now, there we go. Nikolai Rogivu goes 2.2. So he's bringing the bar even lower. He won't be setting another lap time here. We've got more drivers to come, of course. We've still got at least 12. Not a couple of extra laps if drivers are able to set them. Kieran Vernon, what can he do? He goes to the top, 2-minute flat, and then, oh sorry, that was Haisler. And then Vernon goes to the top, a 59.8. The benchmark coming down and down, me thinking that maybe the track drying a touch. And these drivers are able to set some lap times, or maybe it's just some of the equality of lap times that are being set here, because that is a very strong time to get himself under 2 minutes.
I think it's a combination. It's the track is drying probably, and you have to remember what I said earlier, where they're learning where the grip is out here. Drivers are probably kind of getting that safe lap in on the first one, and the second one, they know what's possible, so they're pushing a lot harder.
Absolutely.
Ooh, and Ugo.
There's Ugo improving, 9/10 of a second. In front now. Don't count out Dean Santos, though. He's been with us for quite a few weeks here on Friday Night Primetime in the Super Formula Lights. He'll have some experience under his belt. Can he nick it on the line? There's only 10 seconds to go. I think this may be the last time that we see as he runs up towards the line, just about going to reach the line in time. Not by much, though. Dean Santos, in the end, is going to jump himself up a 59.4, puts him second. So, a great time at the end of the session. A few drivers not setting lap times at the bottom, but Ugo Chukwu, what a time from him. And the man who has just been, as I mentioned before, in Berlin doing the Formula E test, rookies test, he has come over to Friday Night Primetime in iRacing, and he has smashed it out of the park. 58.9, puts himself 4/10 clear of the field. Dean Santos, very strong up in P2. Kieran Vernon in third with Jason Hazler in P4. Heidi Noah Mamasi, he was setting the benchmark early on but drops to P5, and Nikolai Rogiviu in P6. We look down to Alvin Chan and Mario Cuesta in the top 8 with Javier Perez and Bench Nemeti in the top 10. Anthony Burrows and Elmar Nisa are in the top half of the drivers on this grid, with Mario Martinez Garcia and Gabriele Bennett in the top on the 7th row, I should say. Ben Blaustein and Bruno Santamaria in 16th with Maxime Leroy and Lewis Werrell in the top 18. And we look further down, 6 drivers not setting lap times: Marcus Putniks, Tim Gray, Nicholas Short, Michael Zakola, Scott Tuffy and Simon Che. None of them setting times, but you'd say none of the big hitters going to be right down near the back of the field. But it's going to be difficult to pull away early on in this race, I think it's fair to say, but it's going to be a case of, I think, surviving the opening sector, Joe.
Yeah, and he's seen some of the drivers having tried starting it on dry and qualifying. It looks like the experiment failed for many of them, so wets should be the way to go to start this one.
An ambient temperature of, I believe that's 21 degrees. That's as hot as it's going to be in Snetterton for the next 2 weeks. I can tell you that for free. I'd love it to be 21 degrees right now, but sadly, it's just a touch around 18. I looked out my window there and I could see a lovely sunset, but I'm getting sidetracked now. Everyone's getting ready to get off of the line quickly here, but with the downhill towards turn 1, Joe, it's going to be difficult, I think, for them all to get their braking points correct, especially if there's a little bit of precipitation on the track.
And I was wrong. It is dries for everybody out there. I think I hear the engine start to rev.
Yes, and here we go. Very quick light sequences, and we are racing immediately here at Suzuka. A couple of drivers pulling out. There is still some spray, but not too much as they make their way down in towards the opening corner. Ugo Chukwu, outside line, trying to fend off Dean Santos, who is down the inside. Better traction you'd expect around the outside at turn 2 for Ugo Chukwu, and he will retain the lead as we make our way into the S's for the opening time in this race. We're expecting 10 laps or so here at Suzuka. And Ugo Chukwu, he has checked off the first box on his list. Get through Sector 1 in the lead, and let's see if he can pull away at the front.
All right, so he's going to have some pressure behind as well. And Santos is really looking back and forth quite frequently here in the first lap, hoping that maybe he could shake him off as they come through. And I think Santos just went wide, and there he is off track, coming through the second Degner. He was in such a great position. Now he's going to have to work hard to get back to where he was.
Dropping all the way down to P8, maybe an inside line on Javier Perez to pick up P7 once again, but Perez dancing around the outside will get the bit of traction through there, will retain P7 that he gained off of Santos. He's got to be careful now, Dion, not to look in his rearview mirrors, because he may get slightly hypnotised by Mario Cuesta's car, currently sitting in P9, but for the first time into Spoon, my word, I thought there was nearly going to be contact between Perez and Santos.
Yeah, Perez made a little bit of a defense, and Dion having to try and take evasive action so that they don't run together, but it works out well for Perez. He gets a great run here, and Chan is under threat as we check out what happened to Blaustein up into the first corner. I didn't know we had an incident in the background. I must have missed it.
Let's see how many towards the opening corner. Blaustein there, going a little bit wide, maybe. Does he get help? Does he help himself around? Let's see. The exit of the corner still going. maybe doesn't have the best of launches off the line. Maybe we're just looking at the mid-pack here, going side by side through these S's, because there was some great action early on in the opening sector.
And just as we show his replay, he had it off in the Casio triangle contact, it looks like, with Nick Short, unfortunately. So he's having to head into pit lane to deal with that. And just as one falls by the wayside, Vernon is picking up the pieces quite well. Look at how honest he's keeping that number 8 here in lap 2.
Ugo not having it all his own way, I think it's fair to say, early on in this race, but he retains the lead. That is the key here. It's a Suzuka track position, so important around a circuit where, as we've mentioned, it's similar to Snetterton in that way. Not too many clear overtaking opportunities, you'd say, down towards the Casio triangle. Probably the best one here in Danny's terminal as well, but not the clearest cuts, I think it's fair to say. Not too many long straights with clear braking zones at the end.
You need to either be brave or significantly faster than your opponent trying to make that pass, as Perez is discovering on Santosh. Despite it seeming that Dion is quicker, he still is unable to get by, and again having to try and dodge to figure out which place to go into the corner. That got it done down into Spoon. That was great stuff from the 11.
Yeah, gorgeous move from Santosh to put himself back up into P6. He can now try and chase after Jason Heisler, but we'll see if he can defend firstly from Javier Perez, because Perez in the slipstream inside line for 130R. Is anything going to be able to deny him the position here? They're going to be locked side by side as they make their way all the way through the fastest of corners here at this Suzuka racetrack. Down the inside again, though, for Santosh, looking to retake it, and I think he will, but he's got to be careful because that slipstream will come back into effect for turn 1.
Yeah, and watch out for those battles because, yes, look at how powerful the slipstream is, but this is a fixed series, fixed setup. So everybody is the same. As soon as Santosh is out into that air, he's just going to hit a brick wall, and it's difficult to finish the pass like it's showing here into turn 1, and we get a little bit of side-by-side. It looks like for second place, where Mamasi has managed to sneak by Vernon, I think turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, Vernon, we were saying how he was keeping Ugo Chukwu honest, but Mamasi showing that maybe he set his lap time a little bit prematurely in the session before the track possibly dried out a bit, so has a little bit more pace in that back pocket. So we'll see if he can now challenge Ugo Chukwu up in towards the top couple of positions. Of course, I thought Kieran Vernon there, I believe that could be a McLaren livery, but of course Ugo Chukwu, McLaren Junior, so a little bit of synergy there.
Absolutely, and I can tell you that it's got McLaren vibes because it's a Gulf livery from what I'm seeing close up. So, yeah, probably kind of a nod to that, what they did in Monaco. As back we go once again to the never-ending battle between Perez. Oh no, it's Werrell, different green car that we've got fighting with him, and Lewis actually slices up the inside into Spoon to make that one stick.
Yeah, another good move here. Javier Perez is just being done at Spoon at the moment, isn't he? 2 moves in 2 laps on the number 2 car, and Werrell is the second to take advantage at the Spoon corner. We're going to make our way down towards 130R and then down in towards the Casio triangle, and it's going to be close between Rogivu and Vernon, and Rogivu, so sorry, I'm butchering that name every single time, but he's put himself, the number 1 car, into P3.
Yeah, the DH driver and quite the fight here as you see him going defensive. Honestly, that's usually all you need to do here, is unless they're pretty far past you into that corner. If you cover the inside into 1 and 2, you should be good. And you see Vernon knows that here. Interesting to note about Werrell and Perez. Remember how we saw Javier making some moves that kind of scared me a bit with Dion? Lewis actually got on the radio complaining about those moves as he tried to pass him. So I think Javier, unfortunately, not making friends today.
No, I think that's very fair. I mean, so far this has been quite tame, this race, to what we've seen previously. Friday Night Prime Time, we've seen 3 wide, we've seen 4 wide down in towards Ascari at Monza. We've also seen ghost cars causing incidents and then appearing on the track. So far this is relatively clean and nice racing, but Lewis Werrell, he's not going to give up on his mission for P6, doing a bit of an up and under on Santosh, not going to be able to work out on the exit, but these guys still closing on the number 10, the number 9, the number 1, Because these guys are all starting to bunch up and letting Mamasi and Ugochukwu get away at the front.
And Lewis is extremely brave. He left a paper's width between his nose and the gearbox of Dion. Thought that he was going to get something, but I think Dion's actually pulling some slipstream from Jason in front of him, which is kind of helping him out, sort of what we started calling the DRS train instead of the Truly train. And maybe it won't be a train because he's going to get side by side. Who's the brave one up through 130R? It's going to be Dion.
And this is more like it, isn't it? Dion then defending the inside very, very late. Jason Heiser maybe caught unawares by that, and it's allowed Lewis Werrell to make his way through. And Santosh and Werrell almost working in a pack at the moment, now up into P5 and 6, trying to chase after Kieran Vernon and Nikolai Rogieview for P3, but they're going to be side by side themselves down in towards turn 1. Werrell, this 3 positions in a lap and a half, you bet it is, and he's up into P5 now.
Awful cheeky from Dion. He just got on the radio and said, let's work together. Or on the text chat, I should say, after he made such aggressive passes to get where he was. I don't think Lewis will be too keen to that idea.
I feel like we're some of the race we just saw. I feel like I'm watching Max Verstappen at the Nürburgring already, but we've still got another 24 hours to wait for that. Lewis Werrell, though, look at his position gain. 13 positions gained in 8 minutes, realistically, of racing. A fantastic effort from him so far. And what's the limit for him? He's only 3.5 seconds off the lead, and he is gaining fast on the leaders.
Got to watch out for Santosh, because I saw him there through the Degners go up and over the curb. These cars ride extremely low, and both on that middle part of the Degners and on the exit of Degners, those are 2 curbs that you could basically toboggan across and get high centered. So you don't really want to do that too frequently. Even with the tires now up to temperature, that'll raise the car just slightly as the tire pressures come in. You can definitely find yourself just chucked off the road.
Yeah, not much runoff is there here at Suzuka. It's difficult to really judge cars' widths, especially when you're making moves. Santosh, that is late into 130R. It's a miracle they've made it through, but look at Javier Perez now trying to go for it. Santosh up the inside. That was a late one. There was big contact. He's gone 2 wheels off the ground there. That would have been a heavy hit on the spine if that was real life when he came back down. But in all of that, they are still P5 and P6. And now, well, actually, no. I was going to say Santosh gained the position, but let it back again. But look at the replay here. Very late move to the inside. Oh, that was a scary moment, wasn't it?
I am very surprised that he did not have a meatball flag from that one. He still hasn't served his slowdown penalty, interestingly. I think he was trying to wait until these S's to where he felt like it's easier to try and fend off other cars. But if he keeps going for too far, he's out. And there it is. He's got a black flag now. He's going to have to serve a drive-through. So that was, if you ask me, a bit foolish. It's always better to try and give that back as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's it was an interesting move, I think it's fair to say. Perez was normally going around the outside, you could see that, and then still trying to go into the inside. When it tightens into that Casio triangle, maybe not the smartest idea, but he's still fighting away with Lewis Werrell, and there's more contact on the exit. These two, I don't think they're going to be on each other's Christmas cards.
Someone needs to tell Lewis he's got a that Dion's got a black flag. He doesn't need to do this right now. And they're just getting way too aggressive. He's going to spin Dion around. I'm glad to see that Lewis will get away with that, because I'd hate to see his race ruined when the car that he's racing, I mean, he's not going to be a factor in like a lap or two.
I mean, you got to give credit to Santosh there for the pirouette. I think it's fair to say. But you can't really give too much credit much apart from that. Javier Perez, in all of that, watched it unfold, he stayed out of trouble, he gained the positions, and all of a sudden he's staring at the back of Kieran Vernon for P4, and he's looking for that move. Gabriele Bennett and Bench and Nemethi going side by side with Mario Cuesta behind them, so there's still battles brewing. We've still got 8.5 minutes to go here.
Absolutely, really guarding down to the inside is Bennett, making sure to go all the way up to the pit wall, forcing Nemethi to go round the outside, who's actually doing a fairly good job with it, and coming off the corner, he's still hanging tough. Now this is really going to test their mettle. Back and forth through the S's. Who has the optimum line? It's going to be Benz.
great move there from the all-white machine of Bench Nemeth ahead of Gabriele Bennett now, but really I believe he's having a decent enough race. The number 22 car, of course, all of these numbers are based off the I rating of the drivers, so the higher up the order that a lower numbered car is going to be much better for those guys I rating and vice versa. So Gabriele having a good evening so far. Javier Perez hoping to gain a couple more positions so that the I rating doesn't take too much of a hit. And Kieran Vernon, realistically, probably his main goal, because Nikolai, 2.5 seconds up the road, maybe a little bit too far away.
Yeah, this is basically a battle for fourth unless Perez has some latent speed that we don't know about. Again, this is fixed setup, so there's no real secrets that he's got in there about a car that gets better late in the race. I mean, you can take care of the tires a little more, but I'd be surprised if he was that much faster. And okay, here we go, another side-by-side, but this time Vernon decides it's better to just let him go.
Yeah, not too much heavy fighting there. Javier Perez having a pretty easy time getting to the inside, and Vernon waving him through, not really wanting to cause too much incident through there. Javier Perez now up into P4, but we'll go back to Lewis Werrell, who has been in more fighting than anybody else in this race so far. He's trying to overtake both Bennett and Nemeth. He's got past Bennett. He's in the slipstream of Bench down in towards turn 1. Can he make this move to the outside, I should say? There's also the problem of Gabriele Bennett, who's got both of them down in towards turn 1. Werrell backs out, but Bench doesn't. Around the outside goes Gabriele Bennett. Can he make this one stick? You bet he can to the inside at turn 3, but Bench not quite able to go back around the outside at turn 4. There is some great battling down at the back end of the top 10 here.
That was absolutely fantastic from Bennett. That was a 2-for-1 move to get him up into 7th. And it looks like he's running away a bit. I think that 22 is slightly quicker than those around him. He did set a qualifying time and started from 14th. It just seems maybe the dry track suits him much better.
Yeah, I mean, you can really see how the spray has died down here, can't you? With dry lines forming, the condensation on the track evaporating away. There we go, I've got my stage in the water cycle right that time around, but we've still got 5.5 minutes for it to dry even further. But I mean, Ugo Chukwu wouldn't mind the conditions staying the same, because he's having a very nice time in the lead, isn't he? 1.1 seconds, that gap to Mamasi has really stagnated the last 4 or 5 laps, and Ugo Chukwu at the moment having it all his own way.
Yeah, he's been controlling this race well. He still has Mamasi behind him by a bit, so he can't make any mistakes from here. But all he has to do is keep his pace up. I think Haiti Noah looks like he's a little too far behind there. You can see him on screen now. It's just over a second between the pair of them. And what do we have? About 5 minutes left to go on the clock. So maybe about 3 laps.
Yes, we should have 3 laps to go in this race. We'll complete 2 and get started on a third before the timer. It's 0. Still more fighting between Bennett and Nemeth as they make their way in towards turn 1. Bennett on the inside this time. Can Bench make the outside line work just as his competitor did last time around? I think he can have the inside line for turn 3, but there's Gabriele Bennett around the outside. There's contact through turn 4. Around goes Bennett, and he will see that fantastic finishing result disappear from his eyes as he slips all the way back to what will be P14 now.
I can't blame him too much for going for it. I think there was maybe a tiny bit of ghost contact between them, but I think they were also on a trajectory that it would have happened anyways. A real shame. I think Bennett, did the right thing trying to go for the move. It was just hard racing, and they wound up having the tiniest bit of contact. Unfortunately, it puts him exactly back where he started.
Yeah, all that good work over the opening, 16 minutes in this race undone there, but there's still time. There is still opportunity for him. Again, a couple more spots. Mario Cuesta has had the road open up in front of him as he continues on. We've only got 3.5 minutes to go. 2 more laps on the conclusion of this one, and really we're looking for Alvin Chan maybe to make a bit of a late race move further up the order. And memory serves, Alvin Chan didn't set a lap in qualifying. I may be wrong on that one, but he's having a good race so far, and he's making his way up through the order and looking for P8 now.
I can tell you that Chan did put a lap in from what I'm seeing, but hard-fought battle here. Chan actually down 2 from where he started. Cuesta exactly where he began. I find this...
some jogging, I think.
Yeah. and Mario here. Oh, he's going to go defensive down into turn 1. They're going to fight for it round the outside. Again, tough to try and make it stick, but we've seen it work at least once as Chan is going to hold tough, and as he swings it into the S's, is this finally job done? Yes, it is. I wanted to give a shout out to Cuesta for what is either a Rainbow Road Mario Kart sort of car going on, or maybe this is kind of an RGB, light up tower system that he's got on his car here.
Well, for any of our UK football fans that are watching, who may understand this reference, when I first saw it, it looked like the Wycombe Wanderers goalkeeper kit from a couple of years ago. If anybody gets that reference, please let me know in the chat. If not, I will sit on my laurels on that one. But anyway, 2 minutes to go. One more lap at the end of this one. You're right, lovely livery from Cuesta, and it's not really putting off Chan. I think when we saw that contact before down at turn 4, because of course with the cars going right, the slightest amount of contact is going to push you into a spin just because of the nature of the corner and the nature of your wheel angle. The littlest tap's going to send the rear end going further than it wants to, where it's already on the limit. So it's unfortunate, I think, that we saw the contact between Bench and Gabrielli a few laps ago there, but what could you do realistically in that scenario? 1 lap to go though here at Suzuka on Friday night primetime, and Uga Chukwu looks like he's got it wrapped up with a bow on top, but Mamasi coming under a bit of pressure now.
Rogaview's been getting ever closer to the back of him here. It's now about a quarter of a second. We've seen how powerful the slipstream is, but he didn't have enough of it down the main straight. Watch for him coming down out of Spoon Curve. I think that's the most likely place where this could erupt, but if he feels ambitious, there could be an attempt into the hairpin.
Yeah, I mean, Nikolai with that number 1 on his car will be hoping to make a move just to, hurt the I rating too much in that regard. But Mamasi, the number 5, and good job, good trick with the number 8. He'll be improving his I rating, but I don't think he'll be too worried about that with his real life ventures going to be well for him at this stage of his young career. 28 seconds left on the clock, which means, of course, with Barney waving the white flag down the start-finish straight, we are reaching the hairpin for the final time, and it's been a very, very good race, hasn't it, between quite a few of these guys. We've seen lots of action, lots of moves at turn 1. We've seen more than our fair share of incidents down at the Cassia Triangle, down at Spoon. It's been a very good 20 minutes.
Yeah, a few that went over the line, obviously, but otherwise I've been enjoying this. And yeah, open it up here. Nikolai is trying to go as wide as he can. I think that may have actually hurt him because he dipped his wheels into the grass there.
It's not the ideal run, is it, on this final lap? And a bit of defensive driving here from Mamasi, weaving to try and keep himself into the lead. Only a couple of corners to go, 1 braking zone left in this race, and this might be the first time Mamasi's challenged for his P2. Round the outside goes Nikolai. Can he make that one stick? Mamasi's just going to try and hold it to the inside as they make their way through the final couple of corners. Uga Chukwu will run his way through the final corner for a lights to flag victory here at Suzuka, and in the end, Hadi Noah Mamasi just about hangs on to P2 ahead of Nikolai Rogiviu in P3. Javier Perez comes home for a strong P4, and Kieran Vernon for a P5 as well, but fully deserved, you'd have to say, for Uga Chukwu. He took the lead through turn 1. He defended against Ian Santos and never really looked back, did he?
Yeah, this was his to lose, absolutely, and I'd say he ran a pretty flawless race out there up front. Also, that battle for second came down to 0.07 of a second between P2 and P3. It was right close at the line.
Yeah, we've had, I think that's now going to be 4 side-by-side across the line when we count Lewis Werrell down in P10. I saw he was only about a 10th ahead of someone else. Uga Chukwu, though, is our winner here on Friday Night Primetime in the Super Formula Likes series. He wins by 1.5 seconds ahead of Hadi Noah Mamasi and Nikolai Rogiviu, who were side-by-side across the line. Javier Perez, strong P4 with Kieran Vernon, another strong showing from him in P5. Jason Hazler in 6th with Bench Nemethi after that slight contact at turn 3, coming home in P7. Alvin Chan did settle out time in qualifying and in the end came home P8 with Mario Cuesta in 9th, and Lewis Werrell after that contact rounding out the top 10. Werrell just ahead of Mario Martinez Garcia in 11th with Elmar Nisa and Gabriele Bennett after that contact with Bench down in P13. Bruno Santamaria in 14th with Simon Shea, who definitely didn't settle that time, down in 15th. Maxime Leroy, Anthony Burrows, Marcus Putniks, Tim Gray and Ben Blaustein, the top 20. And only 4 more drivers, Dean Santos, who was a lap down, and then 3 drivers who didn't see the line, Nicholas Short, Michael Sicola and Scott Tuffy. But, Joe, I mean, we've had 2 very exciting races, enthralling races here on Friday Night Primetime, and in the coming week, we've got even more to look forward to. Not just the Nürburgring 24 Hours, but, as you can see on your screen, the Circuit of the Americas next week in the Super Formula Lights. Layout, no chicane to worry our drivers, and of course in the GR Cup we go to Bathurst, Mount Panorama. So 4 tracks, 4 exciting races left in this season of Friday Night Primetime. We really hope you join us for those closing couple of weeks, but for now we thank everyone who has watched along to this race, to these 2 races, and chatted along in the chat as well. Also, big thanks to Joe for joining me in the commentary booth on relatively late notice here today, and Ramiro Augustin, Chiznaros in the broadcast booth, pushing all the buttons, making it look lovely and pretty for us as well. So thanks to everyone who has watched along. We hope to see you next week when we return on Friday Night Primetime, but till then, we'll see you for now.